store. We're excited to have them. The Signatory, this is poured and ready to go. 100 British proof malts, 7 whiskeys in that lineup, all of them 57.1%, and all of them from sherry. So that's going to be a cool tasting. And then we get into the rare and old whiskey weekend, which I know is not inexpensive, but we're going to be pouring some crazy stuff at this event. Everything on the Friday night festival, except for 3 products, is 30 plus years of age. The other 3 that are not are from closed distilleries. So that's going to be incredible. And then we've got some master classes associated with that. Some of our best KWM casks, past and present. We've got a rare and old spirits tasting, including cognac, Calvados, and Armagnac, all of which I believe are 40 years of age or older, which is crazy. There's a Ben Romick vertical with Richard Urquhart, including 3 40-ish-year-old whiskeys, and then a trio of single casks. That's going to be a great tasting. That's sold out, so I won't bother selling you on it. And then the closed distilleries event on Saturday night. 7 closed distillery bottlings. We don't know what the 7th is going to be yet, but it'll be awesome. Another Dumajan tasting with some Balcones. We'll be launching some Balcones in September and more. There's more than that coming up. Lots of cool things in the fall tasting schedule. And we'll be rolling out some more events over the next couple of weeks as we confirm the dates. And we found out yesterday, I've got to get that set up tomorrow, but Mitch from Black Tot is going to be joining us. We're going to do a Black Tot vertical with the 50th anniversary, and then 4 vintages, 2021, 2, 3, and 4, plus the regular Black Tot. Will be an awesome tasting. So hopefully you will check that out. And it seems my keyboard has died, guys. I might need to go upstairs and get a battery for my keyboard. I got a warning that this could happen earlier today. Anything else we should mention before we kind of get rolling here?
No,
if you bought during the sale, now's a good time to request packing. We've got space. So
yeah, and you guys, we were busy. We got a lot of the packing requests already started. So, and if you were holding off for some tastings like the boutique, or not the boutique, the Signatory, the SMWS, and what's the third one again? Yeah, the Diageo. They'll all be poured probably by Saturday. So by early next week, that'll all be ready. For
easy. Yeah.
Anyway, I'll be right back, guys. I got to go get some batteries.
Cool. So should be a pretty interesting lineup tonight. We are looking at we're looking at Andrew's empty desk from what I can see here, but we have something we chatted about quickly doing, since all these 2023 Diageo bottle special releases were still around and on Connect, and we were able to get them. So we decided to put the lineup together for something to do in the summertime, since we don't do as many serious whiskey tastings, and it's hard not to do a Diageo tasting without poking fun at them. So this probably won't be too serious. In all seriousness, though, I have tasted one of these, the oldest of the lineup, and it actually did impress me. I was pretty happy to try that. I haven't tried any of the other ones yet. How many have you?
I think, well, just the Offerman, the last one.
Oh yeah, I did try the Offerman.
Yeah. But I don't think I've had the chance to try many of these. And I mean, there were a couple that we did not choose for this lineup. So
yeah,
and that I'm curious about too. So maybe they'll pop up in a future tasting. But
yeah,
it's it looks like a good
which ones are
lineup.
missing? The Singleton's missing.
Yeah, the Singleton, and there was another one. I just don't remember.
Okay. Well, let's start on
Purdue.
Maybe
but we don't have that
Purdue.
one.
That's right.
Yeah.
We don't. Yeah, I don't think we ever got that one in. But let's start on a distillery that, if you're like me, you probably have never tried. Most of the world had never tried it on its own until this bottling. I think this is the first official bottling of Roseisle, which is pretty cool. Second, thank you.
I think it's
what was the first
official?
official?
I think they did something in 2017 as part of the, although it might not have been a single malt, as part of one of their special releases.
Yep.
But where's our fact checker? Is he not on this yet?
Yeah. Jeff is probably checking this as we speak.
Oh,
I
So
hope so.
Roseisle
He's selling
is
himself pretty hard for that rare and old.
Roseisle is a distillery. I'm just trying to find it in my malt
it's in
whiskey
the new
yearbook here.
distilleries, Evan. That might be why
Yeah,
you
that's
can't,
right.
find it.
So it was founded in 2009, so it's getting to 15 years old now, and it is massive. It was built to have a capacity of 12.5 million liters. I'm assuming they're probably running at around capacity. The tiny picture that is in this version of the Malt Messenger yearbook shows a bunch of shiny copper stills that look actually kind of squarish for the pot still part of it versus your typical pot stills. But it is in Speyside. I guess it was to give capacity for Johnny Walker and the likes in the Diageo range.
So seems I'm still having issues with my keyboard, so I might not be able to do any cutting or pasting or copying, Evan. That might be
Yeah, I
your
can work on that.
responsibility tonight now. Well, when this was built, I mean, it is relatively old now as far as new distilleries go. It was built because Diageo saw an opportunity in 2009 where the whiskey industry was going through the roof and they wanted to make sure they had enough capacity to service their blends. And I remember when it was being built, my friend Pete Curry, who's with Duncan Taylor now, but he was with Springbank at the time, compared Roseisle to Mordor. And it was one distillery to rule them all. And in the darkness bind them, I believe was the quote that he put out there for it. And at the time, it was quite divisive. I mean, I remember being on a tour of whiskey enthusiasts in the Speyside, and we drove past the site, and you were not allowed to go onto it. But we pulled off just enough so that we could get photos of the distillery, so we could claim we've been there. And then it had been raining, and there was a fresh pile of dirt, so we made dirt clumps, bombs, snowballs, and threw it at the sign, and then drove off really quickly. And we were pretty proud of ourselves for that, I have to say. That would have been probably 2011 that we did that, so 2 years after it opened. I have heard good things from people who've seen the site, that it is impressive, that they've done a good job, and I have no doubt about that. I mean, Diageo, as much as I may dislike it about certain things, Diageo is an impressive company, and they tend to not do poor work. It's just some of their business decisions are extremely frustrating.
Jeff says that sounds like a different boutique label. I was gonna say, if we ever do a boutique Roseisle, that sounds like a ready-made label right there.
I really hope that someday there is a boutique Roseisle label, because I think it would be incredible.
So what do you guys think of this one on the nose? This is a little bit interesting for the lineup because this is one of the more naked of the 8 whiskeys we're going to try. There's a lot of different cask finishes in here. This is maybe one of 3 that is more just straightforward ex-bourbon and refill casks.
It's funny because it reminds me a little bit of Linkwood on the nose. It's quite floral. It's very light, very fresh. And I don't think Roseisle is located far from Linkwood Distillery. And it kind of makes me wonder if that might have been one of the distilleries they were modeling off when they built it.
Yeah. I can see the Linkwood, and I can also see maybe a bit of Tequila in there, where the Linkwood and Tequila sometimes have this mineral chalkiness that comes through on the nose for me, and I'm getting a bit of that on here.
The palate is Tequila. The nose to me is Linkwood. The palate's Tequila. I'm getting, I don't know if anyone did this as a kid, but camping, you make granola and fry it with honey in a frying pan for breakfast when you're backpacking. It reminds me of granola fried in honey on a little campfire stove.
So that is 56.5% as well, but it's doesn't come off as too hot. It's pretty well balanced.
I mean, it does raise some questions, 56.5. Probably not, but I mean, I wonder what their cut points are. I'd be really interested to know, was Diageo using this as a site to kind of jam production through? So would it maybe have a slightly higher
ABV.
in order to maximize.
Yeah.
But based on the ABV 56.5, and assuming that this is probably natural cask strength, it probably
That's
went
what
into
the bottle says. Yeah.
Yeah, it probably went into cask at 63.5%. So my initial thought on it is, even though it's not rough and sharp, there is a bit of a heat there, and it made me wonder if maybe this might have been put into the casks at a higher ABV at still strength. But given that it fell to 56.5, I'd say it's probably unlikely.
It's got a good weight malt wise.
Mhm.
Really nice honey notes. It does have just a bit of that sort of bitter sour note that or sour sweet note that Tequila sometimes gets on the end with the grassiness.
Mhm.
Pretty pleasant dram.
Oh man.
Have you guys tried water on it?
I've not. But science, I'm ready for some science here. I'm actually still trying to troubleshoot why I can't type into the chat, but don't think it's related to my keyboard now.
Well, you did type before you left.
That was before the keyboard died, though. Interestingly. But the
There.
keyboard on my laptop should be working, and it's not working either.
Well, maybe you'll have to boot yourself and then come back in or something.
Okay, that's not a bad idea. Well, will that kill the recording
No,
or the live stream?
shouldn't affect anything on that end because we still have hosts. It'll just kick me to host. That's all.
All right, well, I'll be back.
Yeah. So yeah, pretty smooth start. Maybe a bit of heat there, like Andrew was saying. Really nice weight to it. I'm still kind of surprised we haven't seen anything else from Roseisle. I mean, Diageo does have big pockets and a lot of distilleries, so it's not like they were forced to focus on this distillery at any given time, like a young craft distillery would be to put out some young and maybe immature whiskey to try and get some money back. They also don't have to make gin or anything like that at Roseisle, as far as I know either, so that probably helps too. But this is pretty promising for your first release 12-year-old. Maybe a bit of a shame that it was in a special release range and not a regular release, and maybe a bit of shame at the original price for it. But everything else about it is pretty good.
Yeah, it actually is quite lovely with water as well. Doesn't lose much at all.
Let's put that one aside for now, and let's get into the oldest whiskey of the night. And this I had originally had at first in the lineup, but I ended up putting the Roseisle, switching them around last minute and putting the Roseisle first. So we're going to Glenkinchie, and this is easily the oldest Glenkinchie I've ever had that I'm aware of. Glenkinchie is a lowland distillery. It's been around for quite a while, since 1837. Of course, owned by Diageo. It's never really had any massive expansions the way a lot of other Diageo distilleries have. Capacity, of course, at least according to the 2023 Malt Whiskey Yearbook, is 2.5 million liters. So about 1/5 of Roseisle distillery. And it does get used in the malts of Scotland range, or whatever Diageo calls their special release range. It is their token lowland distillery, just because they don't have another one. Not that a lot of people do. But everything I knew about Glenkinchie was a 12-year-old in the distiller's edition before this. I hadn't had any independent bottlings. That you almost never see independent bottlings of Glenkinchie. Although we do quite possibly, or we think we have one in the store right now. Two. Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one's the reserve cask and one's single cask.
Oh, we have a single reserve cask lowlands as well. Very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. It's extremely tropical and really lovely. And it reminds me of this too, just with some age on it.
Yeah, this one goes tropical as well, for sure. It has this nice waxiness and again a bit of a chalkiness to it. This guy is, I'll bring it up here. Actually, not that I'm a big fan of a lot of these labels, but I do like the label one too.
Yeah, it's pretty.
It is pretty. So 27 years old, 58.3% alcohol.
There's a little chalkiness to this too, a woodiness and lots of floral notes.
Yeah, I think it's matured and refill American and European oak barrels and butts. So maybe a touch of sherry cask influence to it, but not like overly or overtly so for me.
Mhm. It's very floral,
Yep.
and toasty. Like my only knock on this, and it's a lovely whiskey. I've tried it a few times, but the oak really makes its presence felt on this. Like this is an example of one of those whiskeys where it's on the verge of being great, but like there's just this little grip where the wood is starting to go just a touch bitter.
Yeah, it does come through on the palate where it's got this slight dryness on the finish.
Mhm. But it's lovely. I mean, this is,
Yep.
it's quite tropical, but just with this little bit of a bitter, drying bitter finish at the back end. Glenkinchie, I don't know if you said anything, any nice words about Glenkinchie. But
Just
it's,
lowlands. Yeah, don't see a lot of independent bottlings or anything. Yada
well, we've
yada.
had curiously quite a few from
Yeah.
some parts of Scotland, though I think for the longest time we assumed they were all Auchentoshan, but they weren't.
Mhm.
And there are all these mystery lowland bottlings. And the reason we know they're Glenkinchie is because if you look carefully, the 6-packs box they come in says Glenkinchie on them, which is
Mhm.
interesting. It doesn't say lowland or Auchentoshan. It clearly says Glenkinchie on them. What do
There's
you think?
I really like the waxiness on this, and it has like a touch of like a yellow bell pepper note right now on the nose for me.
Interesting. It has more of like a dried grapefruit for me.
Mm.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, a bit of honeydew and into cantaloupe as well.
So one of the originally, well, for a while there was only two lowland distilleries, Glenkinchie
Yep.
and Auchentoshan after Rosebank closed. And then Bladnoch was operating intermittently in that point in time. And I remember the stories, and I always like recounting this because it's not true, but there's always the truth, and then there's the better story. And they shut Rosebank down because it needed a lot of maintenance. It had water access issues, but also water treatment issues that were going to cost the forebears of Diageo millions of pounds. And this was in the late or the early 90s. And so the decision was made to shut Rosebank and keep Glenkinchie open and make it one of the classic. I believe it was originally only classic 6 single malts, but then they sort of expanded it to include Clynelish. But the story I heard that I still like to this day was that the marketing department at Diageo felt Glenkinchie sounded more Scottish than Rosebank, so that's why they closed Rosebank down. And the reason why I think this was an early example of conspiracy theories in the whiskey industry. I think the reason that story lasted as long as it did and that people like me promoted it is Rosebank was a traditional triple distilled whiskey,
Mhm.
and Glenkinchie has been like a double distilled whiskey for a very, very long time now. And so it's not always been fully embraced, but I also think to your point, Evan, you talked about not only do we not see a lot of independent bottlings of it, but official bottlings of it are usually limited to the 12-year-old and the distiller's edition.
Yep.
And they're not great. I mean, they're not terrible, but they're not exciting. And I think people looked at all these lovely tropical old Rosebanks they were trying, and they're like, why would you close this? But we've never really been given a lot of opportunity to try cool bottlings of Glenkinchie either.
Yeah, we definitely haven't, and it's even interesting. Like as you said, like it's not as lowlands are sort of like typified to us as being this triple distilled light whiskey, a
Mhm.
la Auchentoshan, and although they get the lightness right, they don't really follow the rest of the game plan when it comes to what you would think the lowlands are. Neither does Bladnock, for that matter, anymore. But it just goes to show how the regionality and the pushing of the regionality, which Diageo was, and their prior companies that they were so keen on pushing for ages, was just a bunch of marketing BS in a lot of cases.
Mhm. Yeah, because it's not like the new distilleries that are opening up there following that triple distillation pattern that fits the
Nope.
lowlands. It's just making single malt. Yeah.
Some comments in there about playing on the riff of marketing matters. I mean, basically tonight's tasting that we're talking about, like, is a marketing exercise, these Diageo special releases. And in recent years, they've been coming out, we never see them, and I'm not sure we would get them even if we did, but they come out with these elaborate origami boxes with the different releases in, and you see whiskey influencers unboxing them and trying the different ranges. And I'll be honest, I feel a little bit of whiskey FOMO, because I think, you know, having sold millions of dollars of Diageo whiskeys over the years, I would like to think Kensington should get one of said boxes. But
Absolutely, because like,
We
can you
don't
imagine
have
how
enough
amazing that would
Instagram.
look? Yeah,
can you imagine how
and how amazing it would look going under a bulldozer? Like,
Yeah.
it'd be fantastic.
I have yet to bulldoze a Diageo tasting sample kit, but
Yeah.
But I mean, that again, it kind of reminds me, Evan, of a conversation we had today I had with Sean, about marketing is, you know, like maybe we didn't get a box because we don't have as many Instagram followers as the influencers do. Because I had an agent walk through our doors last week saying that they had a new product, and the really cool thing about it was that they had X 100,000 Instagram followers for a new company. And not once in his 5-minute spiel did he tell me what the product was and anything about it. Just that here's your piece of paper and we have a lot of followers. And I just thought,
Yeah.
like,
was
so
that
how many flats does a follower get you?
waterproof? Because, like, I'm just mostly joking because I see people pumping that up on social media for some reason because they're probably getting paid. But
Yeah, I don't know, but
I mean,
I just thought it was really interesting that that was their sales pitch in a market that's so dominated like Alberta is, that we have Instagram followers, so you should carry our stuff.
Yep.
Well, for better or worse, and I don't mean to besmirch an event held 100 kilometers away from us in a very beautiful place, but there are brand ambassadors that show up to that whiskey festival with a couple hundred people and not to our MS festival with 600 to 700 people because they got a pretty blingy Instagram profile. So
Yep.
I guess that has
Marketing.
an effect, but
Yep.
does that generate sales at the end of the day? It would
Exactly.
be an interesting counterpoint.
Yeah.
Did either of you guys apply science to the Glenkinchie by any chance?
I did.
I did.
Oh, how'd that go?
It holds up pretty well. It goes into a little bit more of that grapefruit note that I believe Harmony had mentioned, and even into a light kiwi note on the palate for me.
Yeah. It gets a little bit more chalkier, slightly more oak influenced, but it's in a good way. It's very nice.
Mark these words, guys. This doesn't happen often. I think this is better with water than it was without. So
I agree.
that doesn't get said very often. That doesn't come up too often in these tastings.
Yeah, next you're going to tell us it really opened it up.
I would not say that. Those would not be my exact use of words, or in said order. That would not happen. But stranger things have happened. Shall we move on to some Clynelish?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a tropical banana bomb.
This is probably the whiskey I was looking forward to the most that I haven't tried, just because it is Clynelish as all Clynelish should be, in my opinion, which is just ex-bourbon. Don't faff around with sherry, just leave it naked.
They didn't faff around with it, Evan. You got to put her up on the screen though too.
Yeah, absolutely.
But did they faff around with the price, to use that word, which is a great word that doesn't get used very often?
They did. The whole concept of this special release was, I think they started with the price point and then built a whiskey around it.
Now-
And unfortunately missed the bar.
I've not looked into this that much because we don't get them, but in recent years, the special releases have always had kind of an artwork theme. Does anyone know what the theme was this year? Was it like mango
This
or
one,
something like
Clynelish,
that?
isn't it? It like a jazzy jazz band, like a couple of people playing saxophone with like red and gold musical notes. Like,
Yeah, I didn't get the
this one?
concept, and I didn't read about it on the Roseisle, the Glenkinchie. As we get into the more cask finish sides of things, which will start on the next one, if I remember correctly, I think they do sort of hearken a bit art style wise, or what the art is portraying to the casks that were used, or where the casks came from.
Are you able to share screen this? Oh, sweet.
Yeah, so this is the
Okay.
Clynelish, 57.5% alcohol. This one, I don't think it, oh yeah, it still does say natural cask strength and first fill bourbon American oak. Good thing they put American oak after bourbon there, otherwise we wouldn't have known.
It is rather Clynelish-y, especially on the palate. The nose, you know, it's waxy and honey. There's a bit of floral tones in there, but I find it's a touch closed. The palate, though, this does shine, and it reminds me a little bit of that single malts of Scotland Clynelish cask we bottled, the young one, the 12-year-old.
Yeah, that was gorgeous.
Although that was waxier and more honeyed than this. If
I
memory-
don't know if it was. Yeah, it's like really spicy, more spicy than I was expecting, because the nose is very sweet. And
Yeah, it does
I
go
said
a bit
banana.
more into, it does have like that peppery edge to it going on there with the spices. Do you like that waxiness?
So ex-bourbon, American oak entirely for this, all first fill. And I think you can kind of feel that. It's got this velvety. I might almost have been tempted to guess there was some virgin oak in this because the oak is very toasty. Harmony, to your point, it's quite spicy as well. Warming.
Yeah.
I would have almost rather there been a bit more refill cask in this so you could get more of that Clynelish spirit character coming through.
Yeah,
I
that's
agree.
fair. Yeah, it is. Even there is a bit of dryness coming through on the finish there too from all the first fill. Pierre Oliver says banana smoothie. Chris and Sarah say fruit punch. It does have a bit of a cherry note coming through with the ex-bourbon side of things in there as well.
Did you just add some water, Evan?
Yeah.
Jeff stirring the pot. One day I'd like to try a European oak bourbon barrel.
I
I guess Congress first.
Yeah, my joke there. I think you could technically do a European oak bourbon barrel. It doesn't say anything about it having to be American oak. It just says first fill. So my joke doesn't quite work that I said earlier.
Well, can you use what's that other type of oak in the US that's not Quercus alba?
Oh, Gariana.
Yeah,
Okay,
can you make a Gariana bourbon?
as long as it's oak, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I love how, and Kevin's trying to trigger me by putting the word chinkapin in the chat. Everyone knows that's a way to get me fired up quickly. It's my least favorite word in the entire pantheon of whiskey terminology for some reason. I don't know why. But I mean, I always love how bourbon technically only has to kiss oak. Like it literally has to drizzle on an oak stave for mere seconds and it's bourbon. Which seems like a low bar.
Yep. Well, it's definitely a low bar because Anheuser-Busch made a whiskey that did just that.
Really?
Yep.
Why are you trying to ruin this nice evening?
Oh, and Beyonce fans rejoice. She and Dr. created a bourbon. So you'll have the
not Dr. Dre, Dr. Bill Lumsden.
Yeah. Sorry, what's that?
Not Dr. Dre. Dr. Bill Lumsden helped create that whiskey.
I mean, after his Olympic performance, can we all agree I'd like to see Snoop Dogg do a bourbon?
Yes.
I would actually be into that.
Maybe with European oak.
Maybe he would. Yeah.
It's
That's good.
I thought tequila was the big thing that everybody was getting behind right now, so it's surprising she's launching a whiskey.
Beyonce is bringing whiskey back, Evan. We're back.
That's right.
She
We're gonna
wasn't
make it
good at
relevant.
country. Why is she going into bourbon or whiskey? Jeez.
Uh, how did it take water, guys? I think I added water and then didn't.
It doesn't do a lot. I think I actually liked it a bit more though. It goes into this nice bit of like peach puree on the palate for me.
I think it takes water okay. Kind of reminds me of like sorbet when they give you like at a fancy restaurant in the old days, you get sorbet between your appetizer and your main course just to refresh your palate. I don't think this is a $250 whiskey though.
No.
I have to say.
No, I think that's going to be one of the bigger takeaways from a lot of this lineup is if they had launched this or released these at about maybe 30% less price wise, might have been a pretty good release.
Well, and the Glenkinchie, the pricing on it, to be totally honest, is not terrible. Like that's the reality is for how old it is and for the liquid, it's not atrocious. It's not great, but it's not terrible. The pricing on the Clynelish is dreadful. I mean, it's 10-year-old whiskey. I mean, we're probably going to have this in the market for a couple of years, unless they manage to blow it out at LTO, because it's overpriced.
Yep. Although maybe not as overpriced as a couple of the NASs that we'll get into soon enough. So we'll see. That's
a good point to keep going, Evan. But on that note, I see people putting in their suggestions for celebrities who should do a product endorsement. How about Jiminy Glick? Anyone see him on hosting the Kimmel show last month? I would love a Jiminy Glick endorsed whiskey product. That would be incredible. And if you don't know who Jiminy Glick is, you're going to have to Google it. Trust me, it'll be worth it. Are we going to Oban Town?
Yeah, let's go to Oban Town.
The nose on this Oban is awesome.
And this is one of 2 Rum Cask and finished whiskeys in the lineup, I believe. Bring that up here. Okay, there we go. So yeah, 11-year-old Oban special release. It is 58% alcohol, finished in Caribbean pot still rum casks.
So Harmony, I'm gonna disagree with you on this one. I don't like the nose on this. It seems rough.
It does kind of feel and taste more tequila-esque than.
There is something like it's got a bit of cane sugar, but it's also going pretty herbaceous.
Yeah, no, it does. I mean, like green peppers and olive brine, and it like in the palate, I taste reposado tequila.
I've never been there, but this is what I imagine the alley behind
Ashtrays.
Demerara Distillers in Guyana smells like when it's 35 degrees outside.
Yeah.
Like it's rubbery. There's like a rubberiness to it.
It says it smells like high school. I love that.
It does have a tequila thing going on the palate too. That's a really good call.
Yeah.
And cigarettes.
And that's what I said. And ashy, like I just ate ash.
I haven't tasted it yet. I mean, the nose is intriguing. I'll give it that.
Jeff says his high school smells like Axe body spray.
It does have a bit of that. It's like marshmallows and like aloe at the same time.
Yeah. Surprised
I
Andrew
like
hasn't said
palate.
sunscreen.
Yeah.
I like the palate better than the nose. The palate is like a weird mix of like carbonated water, like juicy fruit bubble gum, and like cigarettes. Like there's this weird kind of mishmash of different things, and
There
hot
is a,
tubs for some reason.
sorry, and hot what?
Hot tubs, like
No,
ozone.
yeah, I totally, the ash is really
Yeah.
what's surprising me. For
And I
it
think
kind of
you're
tastes like
smoking.
a dirty bong.
I think you're smoking cigarettes in a dirty hot tub while chewing juicy fruit gum.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
to me,
ozone note's a good call.
yeah, that's really interesting.
You know
I'm
what
curious what kind of rum casks they're using because
Hmm.
I looked it up earlier, but I forget. But they represent like 6 rum distilleries.
Hmm.
Um, and
Nick
I
Offerman
can't.
didn't choose them personally.
Not this one. He only likes Lagavulin.
Hmm.
Yeah, obviously.
You know what
Well,
is going to be like a great damning with faint praise or even full-on insult for a lot of these releases is, and I think it's very true for this one, this should have been a duty-free release
Yeah.
because they could have gotten away with putting it at this price.
and a 1
And
liter.
you would have gotten a bunch of people flying through the airport just grabbing one for their spouses or grabbing one because they couldn't find it at retail.
Evan,
Like
have
maybe
you
they
put
got
this on the
something really
screen
cool.
yet?
No,
Yeah, I did.
Oh, you
did
did?
you?
Because
Yeah,
I don't
I
remember
can
the price.
do it again.
What's the price on this bad boy?
218.
Oh yeah, you did. My bad.
I mean, it's comparatively better value than the Clynelish, although I think I like the Clynelish better.
Yeah.
Same.
It's interesting. Like the one thing I'll give this real credit for is it does smell and taste like a West Coast whiskey. Like this reminds me in different ways a little bit of Ardnamurchan, of like Long Row. Even though it's not as heavily peated as Long Row, it's not quite as texturally complex as Springbank, but it reminds me a little bit of that kind of coastal West Coast style.
It's got a little bit of just like wet hay over everything right now.
Yeah,
Okay.
big
Have you
time.
applied science?
Science does not help
Science
for
doesn't-
me.
Okay.
Science cannot be praised for this.
It's really salty.
Yeah, it goes a little bit more into Elmer's glue on the nose right now for me.
One, I mean,
It's more fruity, I suppose.
here's an interesting thought for people. I mean, this is like really salty, but like Talisker, Oban spends approximately 5 days at the distillery. Like
Yeah.
the barley gets trucked in, it gets milled, mashed, fermented, distilled. And then on the 5th day, it gets put into a tanker and shipped to central Scotland. Actually not far from Daphne Distillery to get put into a giant warehouse and mature for a decade or so. But it does raise the question, why is this so salty if it only spends, it's not like it's breathing in, the casks are romantically breathing in the salty coastal air, because that's not happening.
I don't know, maybe
I
they
don't know,
put
maybe that's
Solix
the
out for the
rum.
could be.
Could be
Maybe
the
they
rum
put
too, but I
Solix
mean,
out for those Highland cows out there.
mhm.
And then the Highland cows season the casks by licking
Yeah.
them.
They water it down with the tears of Diageo haters. Well, could be, could be. I guess those could be salty if the person's maybe not drinking enough water. Yeah.
Tears are salty.
It's interesting is the best, nicest thing I think I could say about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's another one of those interesting but expensive.
You
But
know
too
what,
expensive.
Evan, maybe this should have been a House of the Dragon release. They could have done a
Oh,
House of the
yeah.
Dragon series.
Yeah.
Or
Maybe
houses.
that's
of
maybe
Dragon.
that's still coming.
Yeah, like they name a whiskey for each of the dragons.
Yeah.
Brand extensions.
So
Yeah.
like Mortlach looks really good in my glass over here
Yeah.
with this NAS mark on the
Yeah.
bottle.
That's more like it.
Mortlach. Not a name of a dragon, but it could be, maybe, perhaps.
Does have
Or-
a samurai on there.
Or a witch.
Yeah.
Interestingly, there's a woman's name in Scotland, Morag.
Morag?
Morag is a moderately common woman's name in Scotland.
Wow.
So
Sounds badass.
you know
Sounds like
what,
a wizard.
Harmony, that is probably the best way to put it. It does sound badass.
Yeah.
So this is 58% alcohol from a super interesting combination of ex-Kanosuke Japanese whiskey and ex-Pinot Noir casks. Has anybody heard of Kanosuke Japanese whiskey?
I'm wondering if it's one of those like rice whiskeys, like from the south of Japan, like
Maybe.
Fujian and stuff like that. Like technically more of a, what do you call those, shochu or something like that, than actual,
Yeah.
Yeah.
or awamori, I think is the other term.
Oh, it's an actual distillery.
Oh, and
Yeah, but what
Matthew
does
is
it
a fan.
use? So distillery, it could be a distillery, but still be using rice, in which case,
Yeah.
in most of the world, we don't legally consider that to be whiskey.
Right, but
I'm
Japan
just
has
taking a look
different
at their
laws.
website.
So if it's not made of grain, like barley, or it can be made of any grain and they can ship it out and call it whiskey.
I don't think this has made its way over to Canada yet, but this is apparently current Kanosuke whiskey here.
Cool.
Hmm.
Double distillery. Don't know what that means. Blended Japanese whiskey.
Well, clearly they're two neighboring distilleries working together.
Yeah.
So
One in
there's no way this
Canada.
was finished or matured. This wasn't matured full
No.
term in Kanosuke casks. It can't be.
No,
It's not possible.
no, it's
They
they
forgot
have
the
to make
bourbon.
time for that. Those ex Pinot Noir casks.
Which is kind of surprising. I'm not getting a whole lot of wine influence, but I mean, not like normal.
This is like you made pledge with plums on the nose. Like it's a plum furniture polish with a little bit of cherry blossom. Sam is being ChatGPT Jeff right now. He says Kanosuke Hioki pot still is made at Hioki Distillery by using unmalted and malted barley, mashed and fermented in a unique process. Single malt Kanosuke is a flagship whiskey from the Kanosuke Distillery. So owned by the same family, the two distilleries that are talked about for the double distillery.
They own the Pinot. Do they own the Pinot Noir winery as well?
That'd be funny. I don't think it actually says where they come from, but if I remember correctly, like isn't Belglas owned by Diageo?
Oh, it might be.
Who, sir?
There's at least
Belglas?
or maybe it's Freebark Abbey. There's a couple bigger California wineries that are owned by Diageo.
Freemark Abbey doesn't, I don't know if they do Pinot Noir.
Yeah, they're more
More
cab
cab.
based, aren't they?
Yeah, Cabin
I don't
Merlot.
think Belglas is owned by Diageo because it's represented by Renaissance. So
That's right. That's right.
Belglas can't be. I don't think
There's a lot of root vegetables on the nose, like potato skins and
So
even
given the
into
price
like dried
point,
beets.
I have to imagine this is slightly older Mortlach. Probably some of it 20 years plus. Like I don't know what the actual vatting or blend was here. And I would say the reason I've got a pretty good idea of that is, they've disastrously overpriced their older whiskeys because they were trying to Macallan Mortlach.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm not going to swear, but why did they put it in Pinot? It's like they took something dry and meaty and were like, how can we make this even earthier and meatier and less drinkable?
It's showing its wine for me now. Like my first sip, it wasn't really there, and now that I'm trying, it's very, very dry.
Well, it's Diageo is
Kinda
guilty of doing this
starchy.
before with the NS releases that are like egregiously priced, where
Yeah, like
there
the
is nothing on the
Kraganmore.
bottle. Yeah, nothing on the bottle to tell you or give you any idea of why it's this expensive.
Mhm.
They just
Um,
want you to look it up and buy more of their products.
Mhm.
Yeah,
well,
that's what I'm
And
doing.
every single one that they release like this, and not just Diageo, but and not to get on the NES train again, but it when it's at this price, it very much seems like some sort of social experiment.
Yeah.
like I don't know who they were trying to kind of promote this whiskey for, but I don't think it worked. And like,
How is it with water?
well, I've added water. I'm kind of hesitant to get in there again. Evan, what
I
was this? This
just
was
said
like
that after
three,
I'm like
sorry, was this
scared.
380? What was the price on this?
For
My
449
God.
99.
So yeah, water doesn't make it better.
For those of you that are looking to order a bottle, there's a link for you.
Why would you buy
Thank
that when you could have this for less?
Yep.
And it's great, like
Yep.
actual great.
hmm I don't know, water. It's very dry and kind of chemically.
Yep.
It's very interesting, the choices that they've made here.
So
Yeah.
Mortlach, for those who don't know, is 2.87 or 84 times distilled. It's 2.8 something times distilled. There's a whole combination of foreshots and feints and second and third distillations. But it's an unusual process involving a small still called the Wee Witchy. Uh, and I think it's a great spirit. I love Mortlach, but
Mhm.
why not give the people what they want, which is like a Mortlach matured and sherry that balances with those meaty sulfur tones. Maybe buy some stock back from Gordon MacPhail because they seem to have better Mortlach than Diageo does half the time.
Mhm.
Yeah, interesting.
Which is not to say that like that 16, the OB 16 is a decent whiskey, especially if you can get it on sale. But this just does not do it for me at all.
No, it's kind of sad. I'm not really feeling the Mortlach love and DNA in this bottle.
Yeah. It's like to come up with that combination of casks too is just like, what was the math on that? Or was it just like, man, we did these two experiments that we don't think worked, so we're going to put them together.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, maybe it's that they didn't have enough to make it a release on its own, or at least they wanted to release
Mhm.
a larger
certain
volume.
volume.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in the hopes that they're going to get more interest from it. But man, uh, really not great. I mean, not terrible, but not great either. So
Yeah. Well, again, it's the price that makes it even worse.
I was just checking Whiskey Fund to see if they'd had their way with it, and maybe this is one of those like examples of if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all.
Mhm.
Should have done that like 10 minutes ago.
Well, a little different for us. I'm pretty sure Diageo's not watching. I
No.
mean,
That's true.
yeah.
No, they definitely are not.
Yeah.
Um,
Although
but
I would take great pride if like what we should have done is done this right before they did their quarterly earnings report and then claimed that we were responsible for the drop.
uh,
That
that
would have been amazing.
that would have been great.
Okay, on to Talisker.
We don't have that kind of pull, but it would have been funny.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you would have all got free kits.
Yeah.
All right,
So the
Talisker.
Talisker is the other NAS in the range. I think it's actually the most reasonably, or the second most reasonably priced in the range right now, at 189.99, which may or may not still be reasonable or unreasonable, depending on what
But
you
that's
think.
because And Evan, correct me if I'm wrong, is this a notable age statement or just a no age statement?
Yeah, this is no age statement as far as I know. 59.7% alcohol. And I believe the concept was putting it in port, so it's almost like a cast strength version of the port re.
Interesting. It smells like they aged it with like a pizza, like pepperoni, the dough, the
Nice.
green peppers. That's what I'm getting. It smells like pizza.
Definitely some green pepper.
This is another one where I do not mind the label
Chili.
on it too. It's not being like highly outlandish for what you would expect from Talisker stylistically.
It's just kind of a boring boat.
Yep, with a barrel.
Except with the
cask.
barrel and some shadowy man with the flowing button up at the front.
Yeah.
But
His
I don't
name's
know if anyone
Fabio.
else has noticed this, and kudos to Diageo. The artwork on all their labels is very inclusive. So
Yep.
not just, middle-aged white dudes.
In fact, I've seen no middle-aged white dudes at all.
We haven't seen one yet, I don't think.
No.
It's fine. Like,
Kind of jammy.
I mean, I think I like the Torveg Croque-Namonia more than I like this. And like, that's another whiskey from Skye. It's much younger. Well, maybe it's what, 6, 7 years of age.
What was the price on this?
Younger.
The front
190.
pages. Oh yeah, so it's probably around the same age.
It's roughly double the price of the Torveg Croque-Namonia.
Yeah, it's
it'd be
Talisker-esque. Like it's got the pepperiness to it.
Yeah, you get that little bit of chili heat.
Mm-hmm.
It's good. It's salty. There's a little bit of smoke in there.
Yeah, it's going
This
a bit
one's
farmy.
growing on me. I like the palate on this, but
Yeah.
I don't know that it has any wow factor to it. But it's good.
It's good. Yeah.
With water, it does go into a little bit of like a beef Ichiban packet or beef bouillon note.
I didn't science the Mort. No, I did science the Mortlach. No, I did. I'm gonna do that with the Talisker here. See how we do.
It's very salty. I'm very surprised. Like, I know I shouldn't be as surprised as I was finding salt in that Clynelish, but or Oban. But
And Harmony, just like Oban, Talisker spends 5 days on the island of Skye. Like it's the romanticism of the wild volcanic island of Skye. Like it spends 5 days there. It doesn't
It's
mature
like-
in casks there.
I remember the day you told me that all like 99% of Isle whiskeys are aged in the Highlands, and like my soul crushed a little bit when that balloon burst. But now
Yeah.
I feel a little bit more jaded about the industry, and like like it proves it's all marketing. The
A
whole
lot of it
concept.
is.
I mean, there are great whiskeys still, but the influence that they're portraying is not always as it seems.
Yeah,
So
like
is that the Scotch whiskey lovers version of learning about Santa Claus?
Yeah.
kind of.
Yeah.
But it also, I think, gives you more respect for producers that try to mature close to the distillery. I mean, Ardnamurchan has built warehouses into the cliff above the distillery, into the hill at great expense. Now, you're not always allowed to do that. Like on Aaron built as much warehousing as they were allowed to, but they now have to mature some of their whiskeys in the lowlands of Scotland. They try to keep it near the coast, but they have to because they can't get permission to build more warehouses on the island.
Yeah.
It's a little different when, like, if Talisker hasn't matured anything on the island for decades, and to like make this marketing idea that the region is important, like that the terroir, the locality is important, when the stuff is made there and then leaves and never comes back. Like, to me, there's it's a fine line between, yeah, it's a good product, but it's also lacking in integrity or honesty because they're giving you this rose-colored view of what it actually is.
Mhm.
So why aren't they like, does Talisker have the same like
Yeah,
limitations?
well, today, I mean, they wouldn't build them today even if they could because it's not cost
Yeah.
effective.
Yeah,
But
there's logistically, it just doesn't make sense.
Okay, because
Torvig
to
has
say, I was
one
gonna say,
warehouse, and
right,
that's all they're allowed to have. Everything else has to
okay,
get matured elsewhere because they can't get, like, the Isle of Skye is this beautiful wild place, and heaven forbid you should build a warehouse there
Yeah.
that could potentially ruin people's view. Like that's
Well,
kind of
that it is. I don't know how many of you have watched Clarkson's Farm on Amazon, but it's a fun show if you are like me and you're like a Top Gear fan too, and you just like watching an old guy do a bunch of lunatic stuff.
what's it called?
Really gets like shows uh how little we see on and can like wrap our heads around in Canada and the US, like how crucial space is and how crazy planning commissions can be, where like you have to get all of these okays and go aheads and get through all this red tape that is like not like in any like there's no ounce of control over it when you
Are you
when you
talking
plan
about
a
Clarkson's
distillery.
Farm or
Yeah.
whatever it is? Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm also talking about like for building a distillery or building anything in the UK where
But on a related note though, Evan,
yeah,
this could be a whole other tasting. Should they build another distillery in Scotland?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's like you hear about all these stories about everybody and their brother wanting to build a distillery in Campbelltown right now. And it's like we'll hear about this and then maybe 10 years from now one will pop up with all the different like boxes they have to check just to get it okayed.
Yeah. I well, we had this amongst the staff, there was a couple of texts going around this morning because Macmira, which is a Swedish distillery, is closing after 25 years because they can't make a profit. Penderyn, a Welsh distiller, closed one of their two distilleries because they're struggling to make money. And there's new distilleries under construction today in Scotland that have not even distilled. And
Yeah.
one scary fact that I saw earlier this year was that last year in the UK, 8 times as much stock was laid down in wood as was bottled. And even if you assume that they're going to lose 50% to evaporation, which is a lot and way more than they ever would, that would mean that in the next 10 to 20 years, the industry demand for whiskey has to grow by 4 times to eat up the demand for what was put down last year. And that's not realistic. So
No,
Yeah.
it's not. Wow.
it's going to be a buyer's market, I guess, is my point. In the not too distant, maybe not for the old stuff, but for distilleries and whiskey under 15 years of age, there's going to be a buyer's market coming. On that hopeful topic note, should we move on to Lagavulin?
Yeah, let's do Lagavulin.
Yeah. Aaron accidentally found my knockoff Glencairn Lagavulin
Nice.
with its not perfectly round curves, because they're a really small company and they can't quite afford the real Glencairn yet.
Who can't?
Lagavulin.
Ooh, it's a knockoff?
Yeah, it's not real. Look at the shape.
Oh man, amazing.
I hope one day they become big and people find out who they are and they can.
Yeah, one could hope if only they had like a name like a big name sponsor or something to really
Yeah,
help
or
them
like
out.
a TV
Have the
connection.
ability to
Yeah.
buy actual proper Glencairns.
Yeah. Oh, one day.
Mhm.
But I mean, the market's
we
kind
saw that a couple of years ago where we were given what we were told Glencairn glasses to give away for a specific whiskey brand from where it's very obvious that Yeah, I won't say who it is, but it was it was very obvious that like they gave the task to somebody, and it was just like, don't spend a lot of money on it, just get these out the door. And they were not, they were the knockoffs.
I, Evan, I would go so far as to say it was a French-owned Islay distillery, but that's about it.
Yeah.
If you can't figure that out, it's not worth trying to figure
I
out.
mean, it's interesting because there's a lot of huge brands that do that.
Mhm.
But this on your pop-up, Evan, did you say mezcal casks or
So it
tequila?
is it meant, well, I think Kurt wrote this, and he mentions, you may recall, mezcal finished Kilhoman we did a couple years back. No, this is from this is a quid pro quo. Yeah, there you go. For the Don Julio Lagavulin casks, and just the
Right,
continuation of the Lagavulin Offerman Edition that were in tequila casks. So this is
right.
another tequila cask finished Lagavulin,
Yeah.
but without Offerman on the label, unless he's now a tattooed lady.
Evan, can you put the photo back up on there? Because I
Yeah.
love how the Kensington description feels the need to go back and remind people about the Kilholman bottling
Yeah.
of a mezcal cask while they're trying to talk about and sell a Lagavulin bottling, because we were
Who
lucky to
wrote
get
that?
one of the first mezcal
Oh, it would have
casks.
been Kurt. It had to be Kurt.
That's
Yeah,
what
of
I
course it
thought.
was. We got one of the first mezcal casks of Kilholman because of our relationship with the distillery. And I remember Anthony telling me the story where he actually put some whiskey into mezcal and tequila casks before it was made official, because he knew, he had a feeling. He's like, I just know it. Diageo is going to do this, and I want to do it at the same time or before them. And so it was a gamble. He put some whiskey into tequila and mezcal casks, and sure enough, he was right. They changed the rules, and he was able to bottle some before, I think even before Diageo did.
Yeah, yeah. That's funny because you see so many of them now. Like it's the industry is just passing around barrels, and it's just
Yep. It's
rules don't seem to matter. Like all of this whole industry, like single malt and bourbon, was built on these super strict rules set in place
can be
to set
changed
you
if the biggest
apart.
company decides. Yeah.
Right.
And then they're just like throw it out the window. Like, how can we market this? Like
Well, it's like
history
Aaron. Aaron got in trouble about 15 years ago, maybe longer, for doing a release in Calvados casks, and now those are
Yeah.
legal.
Yeah.
And like the logic at the time was, there's no historical record of anyone using a Calvados or apple brandy cask, so it was illegal. But
right.
at the same time, I remember Andy from Gold Medal Marketing did a California Zinfandel finished Tullibardine, which was a very cool release because he had his friend Robert Rex, a winemaker, sell the casks to Tullibardine, who he was importing, and he got them to fill it in that and finish in those casks. Very cool project. But like the idea that American Zinfandel casks somehow are okay, but European Calvados casks, which probably conceivably at one point had whiskey in them somewhere, were not allowed, was kind of crazy. But that's just the logic that the industry was operating under the time.
That was it. That was a Deerfield wine then. Like
Yeah,
I was
it
going
was
to
a
say,
Deerfield Zinfandel.
Yeah.
so that's the only time where the wine cask was a higher alcohol level than the whiskey that came out of it.
Awesome.
Well, it's but stuff like that, it's like it's my hang up. I've had this conversation with Evan so many times. It's like the bourbon world and now being all of a sudden able to finish in wine casks
Yeah.
for notably longer than they are in the virgin oak. Like
Mhm.
and that's not flavoring in any kind. It's like it is. It's flavoring 100%,
Mhm.
but it's allowed.
Yeah. No, it's 10 years from now, we're going to be talking about how somebody at Diageo has innovated by actually finding a way to mount staves on the inside of a barrel in a cross-like fashion.
Just like
And
Compass Box.
yeah,
Who
but
got
the
shut down.
SWA will all of a sudden say, this historically has been done before. So there's a reason for them to do it.
And
It
now it's
was
a
shut
lot.
down, but they did do it before once. So
Right.
Mhm.
we've been on a tangent here, folks.
Yeah.
What do we
Sorry.
think about the whiskey? Because there have been some comments in the chat.
So this is pretty good. I will say, like, again, the price isn't amazing, but it's not massively out of line with what the pricing of the Lagavulin 12-year-old special releases has been creeping up to. Still not what I would personally want to pay for it, but it's decent. I don't think it's as good as previous Lagavulin 12 special releases, but
Yeah, it's not bad. I am struggling a bit with I'm struggling with the price point on this. I mean, it's reminiscent of, you know, not the same, but it's similar to things like the Elic cask strength, which we sell for $80. And for $80, that's a great deal. But for $2.15, I mean, you're buying this because, I don't know, maybe you want a collection, or maybe you love Lagavulin, or maybe you're a Parks and Rec fan. I'm not sure, but it's it's good. It's just the price to quality is way out to lunch on it.
Mm-hmm.
No,
Yeah.
and honestly, I would have been more excited about it if it was, again, just Lagavulin ex-bourbon. Like, I don't think the tequila killed it, but I don't think it necessarily needed it.
It didn't enhance it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not finding a lot of
It's
notable influence.
it's
Like
not
it,
4 times better than Johnny Walker
Yeah.
Black Label.
It just, all the tequila did for me is maybe made it a bit sweeter on the finish, which I don't think
Right.
it necessarily needed.
Well,
It
and
goes
now
pretty
that
sweet.
he mentioned that Elic bottle, I'd rather have that.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah. The finish is very, very similar.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So we're ending with the non-2023 special release. This is the Lagavulin 11-year-old Offerman Rum Cask, the latest Offerman edition. And this is the only not cast strength or high strength version in the lineup. This is only 46% alcohol.
Now we're gonna have to try to distance ourselves, like to be objective. We cannot muddy the water by how much we may or may not like Nick Offerman. I mean, or how entertaining we think he is. We're trying to be objective here just about the whiskey, but I want to say I'm a big fan of Nick Offerman, so just gonna put that out there.
How can you not like that beard?
It's a great beard. I mean,
Yeah. Jeff, I like your beard too. I see you stroking it
great
there.
sense of humor.
That's a magnificent beard too.
Interestingly, on the nose, like this has got a really nice tarry salted caramel thing going on.
Yeah, that's the rum, the Caribbean rum cask did add this nice sort of buttery tone to it as well.
Yeah, there's like a rum and raisin dessert thing going on there.
And this also is a heck of a lot more reasonably priced versus the rest of the whiskey that we tasted.
And
At
I think
$124.99.
they made boatloads of it, like absolute. This was like Game of Thrones quantity volumes. I think they produced of this.
Gotta hand it to Offerman too. Like maybe I'm not I'm just not jaded enough, but that the impression I get is his passion for Lagavulin is real, and it was built into the character from Parks and Rec, and it wasn't like he was led around by the nose on marketing, and this is where he's ended up. I mean, it's pure marketing now, but it seems like it came from a place of really enjoying the whiskey.
Yeah.
This is not, I don't remember this being this way.
Harmony, you look like you vomited a little in your mouth there for a second.
I feel like someone did that in my whiskey. I don't like this.
I like the nose better than I
surprising.
do the palate on this.
It goes into this like crazy, like almost too marzipan driven style on the palate for me.
It has notes of like the rum, it's rum, right? I don't even know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it has like some pretty dank rum notes on the nose, but the palate is just like, it's all over the place and
Guys,
Mhm.
I want to
wasn't
go in a
ready.
slightly different direction on this tonight, and I apologize in advance to the person I'm going to ask this favor of. But one of the people in this chat, Thomas, I believe speaks German, and I'm wondering if he can go onto a German whiskey website to inquire as to whether this has spirit caramel in it. Because,
Mm.
and this is a fact, under German law, whiskeys that have spirit caramel in them have to declare it. It has to be on the label. And I have a sneaky suspicion that this has got spirit caramel in it, even though it's 46%, even though it's a
Mhm.
special release, like it's got this weird, bitter, oily note to it. And I don't know, maybe we can find something out about that.
Spirit molasses, Andrew, not spirit caramel.
I mean,
It- That's like that, like burning dumpster note that some rums have.
Yep.
it's not bad, but I mean, it's also not exciting. So
Yeah.
So,
It's gonna be a fun lightning round. I can feel it. Can you guys feel it?
Jeff is
and
apparently
we
also
are terrible salespeople, team.
Jeff is also
Like the
apparently
worst.
well, we did promise people there would be no punches pulled in this tasting.
I have
And
like,
we took no money or no free bottles to put this tasting on.
thank
So
God. I was
opinions
wondering about that.
opinions are our own. We can't offend anyone.
Yeah. Are we reordering these after? I'm just like,
Well, I mean, if they sell out, maybe. I mean, some of these are good.
well, and the poll will tell us what the people think.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe
Oh.
we're way off base and everybody's loving these.
Harmony, you made a comment about sunscreen in one of the whiskeys. This
Yeah.
has more sunscreen on it than anything else in the lineup.
It does.
Mhm.
Yeah. So rum influence.
Given that this is a British spirit, maybe we should say sun cream and not screen.
Oh,
Maybe by Caribbean rum they meant Malibu.
Hmm.
I saw that in the chat. That would make sense.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
We've been pretty catty for round one. We've still got the speed round to get through, and I haven't scienced this one yet. I don't have high hopes, but I'm going to do it. Are we ready to go through the speed round here?
Yeah, I'm excited to go back to those first more natural naked drams there. So back to the Roseisle 12.
Matthew asked a question there. Maybe ask that again towards the end of the tasting because it might get lost here, Matthew. But
Well,
we're
no,
gonna-
because he asked because it's in connection to this whiskey. That's why. That's right.
the Roseisle.
Yeah.
Well, but let me look at the question again.
Nice.
Regarding the TNX, since that came up from Roseisle, I really enjoyed the Equinox from last week. What's the common thread note that stuck out?
really
To be
good
honest,
question.
it had more to do with the palate than it did the nose, and not. To be honest, that Equinox Tequila is not that similar to this because that was in sherry, but
Yeah.
Tequila has this kind of malty, barley, waxy, fruity note. It's kind of like halfway between Clynelish and
Liquid, I would say.
Liquid. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's probably about right. And I think that this Roseisle kind of approximates that spirit pretty closely.
Yeah. Yeah, so it does remind me of a little bit of the two boutique TNNX. The new one, or the 12-year-old that we have, that's a little bit higher ABV than the previous 10. The previous 10 had it more, but there is still a lot of that sort of grassy, waxy, and more oily than this one note in the boutique TNNX that we have right now. That's great.
Yeah.
I quite like the palate on this.
Me too.
It's nutty, it's fruity, it's waxy, it's floral. This tastes like they'll never close it because they spent too much money on it and it's state of the art. And the spirit coming out of it is pretty decent, but it has no soul. I mean, this is like an AI writing a poem or a TV show. It's fine, but where did it come from? Like, there's no
No,
romance behind it.
It's very much like we can tweak this to make it anything we need it to be based
Mhm.
on what distilleries are closed at the time.
And they have a Macallan's worth of it every year.
Yeah.
Almost.
All
I
right.
mean, not the Macallan bottles, all the Macallan they make because they priced it too high, but that's a different story.
Yeah. Still a nice whiskey. Still one of my favorites in the lineup though. On to the
Harmony?
Glenkinchie 27.
But did Harmony get to say anything about it?
Oh, sorry, Harmony.
Nothing to say?
No, not really. I put in the notes my thoughts. I added water and it sat till it was almost empty and my fan is going, and to me it was like fruit roll up you made at home wrapped in like plastic, set up like a nice
Saran
wax
wrap.
paper. Yeah.
Kevin, you're gonna have to explain your comment because I don't think I'm hip enough with the kids to pick up on it. I think the price taste Roseisle is the Slim Shady in the 2023 special releases. Like it's the steel? Is that where we're going with that one? Or am I just daft?
Sure.
It's the one that all the teenagers are going to be playing in their car when they get their first subwoofer just to blow it out because they don't have an amp that can actually.
But then turning
run
it down when they drive past a middle-aged person walking down the street?
Yeah, or the cops.
Oh, Thomas was able to confirm there was no spirit caramel in the Lagavulin. Thank you, Thomas. That is some first-class sleuthing.
Yeah, move over, Jeff.
Yeah. Learn some German, Jeff.
So, Harmony, I ran you over on the last one. So what do you think of the Glenkinchie 27?
It's very floral and pretty. It's not as oaky as I remember it being, or dry.
I think it's actually,
otherwise. Yeah.
It's held up in the glass well.
Yeah. It still smells like scotch, which is a lot more than I can say for some of these whiskeys.
Evan, what do you think about this one?
Yeah.
There's this chalky waxiness on the palate that I really enjoy. And I like the floral notes. They're not overblown. Really nice soft fruit and going into like a really ripe kiwi note again on the palate for me. I quite like this one. It definitely is pretty wood driven. But
Yeah.
there's still enough other things going on in there that it's not just that. Andrew?
It's gotten better throughout the tasting. I think the tropical tones have come out in it. It's not as bitter and woody as it was before. It's nice. I'd like to see more of Glenkinchie at various ages and something other than just a 12-year-old in a distiller's edition. Because I think that the spirit's got a lot of promise. And we've had some of those single malts of Scotland bottlings, which are excellent, of Glenkinchie. You know, I think in the fullness of tonight's tasting, this actually is going to be in my top 3. So, and I didn't think that was going to be the case when we tried it as number 2 of 8, but it held up quite well.
Right on. Okay, on to the Clynelish. You want to go first on this one, Andrew?
It's very waxy and floral. I mean, it's typical Clynelish. It's pretty good. My biggest knock on this is I struggle with the price, but it's quite good. It's showing better than it did the first time around.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, there's it reminds me of like a dilly bar right now from DQ, where it's like got the frozen soft serve vanilla ice cream and then just a little bit of chocolate around it. Even has a bit of that creaminess to it. I like it. I do wish there was a little bit more fruit coming through. I think the first fill bourbon that Andrew was talking about on the first round is probably masking a lot of that, but it's still well put together.
No, it really got better the second time around. It's showing well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. I like the stone fruit notes that come through. It's got a little more brightness to it than it had before, and there's a nice creaminess that comes on the front of the palate, and then you get this nice acidity kind of on the back end, which I'm really enjoying.
Right on.
Oban?
Yeah.
I admire the fact that they did something clearly very spirit driven. Like there's definitely no
Yeah.
spirit caramel in this. It is pale AF. But it just smells really raw and not overly enticing.
Well, it's more rum raw than whiskey raw in some ways.
Mhm. It tastes like they aged it in a wood box. And
If that
or
would
like
box,
a cardboard box, and it's like falling apart.
but then they filtered it through a latex tube, like an old latex tube. One of those ones that's starting to crack.
Yeah. It's
I
It's go ahead.
I was really excited about this one when we knew we were going to get some because I liked this idea of it being ex-bourbon, then rum cask, but not like over. And it's just it tastes not ready to bottle and
Yeah.
smells not ready to bottle.
No, and it just has, it's weird because Oban for me, that was the first scotch I ever had, and I am guilty of not revisiting it that often. But when I do revisit it, I'm still typically pleasantly surprised by what there is with the 14 and the occasions where I've had the 21. But
the 14's beloved. Like it has a
Yep.
following. Like there are people who love Oban 14.
Never
I do want to
mind.
comment. This Kevin said this would fit
Yep.
great into a pull my finger tasting. Kevin, are you still suggesting this smells a little farty?
I thought that on the first pass, it had like a little
Yeah.
sulfur note to it.
That would not be the first time that we've had a poo or fart reference in one of our tastings. So
Yeah.
And usually they're by you.
it's true. I'm
So
usually the one making them. My favorite is when it's the one that you know it smells like poo, but it smells somehow good, but it's still poo. Like those are the awkward ones.
Yeah.
that's pure
More
fart.
Yeah. On to the Mortlach.
Well, you
God.
know, going back to I don't know if you guys remember that Kalila 30 that was around in Alberta forever because they bought like a ton of it. And I was in Vegas at the Nth Whiskey Festival when they released it with what's his name? The jazz guy who used to be their global whiskey ambassador, Nick Morgan. And Nick Morgan about the Kalila said it's cheap shit on hot wood. Like that was his tasting note for it. So if Nick Morgan's going to throw fecal notes out there, I think I can too.
Yeah. Since we're going on to the Mortlach, I'm going to go number 1 instead of number 2. This is like a urinal that has not been cleaned in a while right now on the
maybe
nose.
When people have not been well hydrated.
Yeah.
Is it a hot summer day at the beach too? Because I'm also getting sunscreen.
Yeah.
Like sweaty
There's
sunscreen.
there's an odd amount of ammonia coming off of this whiskey. For me right
I
now.
feel like we should just cut to poll because it's just going to be bad from here out. Like, I don't feel like we're getting any better with our comments.
The palate tastes like the hamburgers at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, or is it the Johnson Space? The Kennedy, I think it's the Kennedy. Whichever one's in Florida. We went to the visitor center. The food was dreadful. Tastes like the hamburger I had there.
Yeah. Well, the hamburger was cheaper, so at least you got that going for you.
Yeah. Man, it is not good. That Mortlach is not good. Okay.
Yeah, it's almost like they tried to hide that with the price.
That's mean.
Jokes on them. We open expensive bottles because we want to try them.
That's right. Okay,
Talisker.
on to the Talisker.
I'm getting some barbecue notes on this now, like hickory.
Oh, like full on pepperoni sticks too.
Hmm.
I said pizza,
Slim-
pepperoni pizza.
Good
Got to
call.
get into a Slim Jim.
Yeah,
Oh,
this is definitely more like Slim Jim territory
And
right
it's
now,
that
or Hot Rods.
greasy.
Yeah.
It's that
I've
greasy
only had one of
carcinogen.
those once because my coworker used it as a tasting note once, and I was like, "What the heck is a Slim Jim?" And she's like,
Harmony, it's
It
a
just,
pepperoni
yeah,
stick that you can buy at a 7-Eleven, even if it's
Yeah.
been there for 2 years and it's still edible.
that's right.
"I know, that's what she
It's
got. She said she got it at the reserve gas station." And I was like, "Why do
yeah.
I want this?" But
It's a
she
ton
did
of
it.
black pepper with some weird spices, and then like it's not even salty, it's just full on sodium.
And chilies, like the dry chili flakes.
Hmm.
I pour
And
myself some of that new Torvig
greasy.
just to wash the taste of that out of my palate, but I'll do that
So
later.
there's a touch of like pencil lead and going into pencil shavings on the palate.
Yeah.
I don't mind that one. It's the best of the wine finishes in there for sure.
Well, that was a
Yeah,
wine
it's-
finish.
Smells like I
Oh,
stabbed
port.
myself with
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
Oh,
HB.
right, it was
That's
port.
taste it.
Okay. Lagavulin 12-year cask strength tequila cask.
The tequila's blown off a bit on the nose. It's coming off as a bit more Lagavulin-esque now.
It smells like when you lick an envelope.
Hmm. I can see that.
It's okay.
It's also noses like if you had a maple tree right by the ocean and it was
Mhm.
on fire.
Yeah. It's okay.
It's the sad thing with the Lagavulin 12-year cask strength is they used to be great bottlings like 10 years ago when they first came out. And
Mhm.
they kind of gradually got worse. And then they started to get better about 6 or 7 years ago. And then they just kind of went down again. It's frustrating, like having tried them for a long time now to see this because it's not what it used to be. And the big reason I think that is that they're just making too much of it. Like
Yeah.
they're diluting it. There's not enough good casks. There's too many bad or average casks. And it's been commoditized. Says the capitalist business owner.
Let's go on to something that definitely has not been commercialized and do the Offerman edition.
Yeah.
We've said a few things about this. I hate celebrity endorsed products, but for
Yeah.
some reason I have less ire for this one than I do for most.
Yep.
Yeah. I hate when they're good. Isn't that terrible? Like, or is that, I'm
Mhm.
such a cynical person, but I hate when they're good.
This has got that sort of classic iodine note to it that I've not seen in Lagavulin very often.
At some point, we'll have to do the celebrity endorsement tasting.
Once Beyonce's
We
whiskey's
don't
out,
have any.
Yeah.
that's how we'll roll it out.
We carry like 2 celebrity products in the whole store.
Well,
I don't know. I mean,
Casamigos
maybe,
as Casamigos is apparently cratered, so we should see that on LTO pretty
I was
soon.
gonna say, we,
Oh.
unless you count Shakespeare as a celebrity, then we have like 10.
Well, we
That's
haven't
right.
even seen
There
the
you go.
Deadpool gins yet.
Oh
Who's
yeah,
it?
I don't know that we will see them, but like,
the
Who's
Deadpool
gin?
gins.
Oh,
Yeah.
good dog. I bet it just tastes like dirty sweat, plastic, like whatever
Like-
their suits are made of.
having seen that movie, it delivered everything I wanted it to. And
I
nothing.
wanted to go today, but
Oh.
I had a tasting that's really important.
I have yet to watch a Deadpool movie.
Oh, Evan,
What?
you'd love
Yeah.
them.
Evan, they were
I
made
think
for you.
my children were just born at the wrong time. Is what
Evan,
happened.
those movies I'm convinced were made for a broader audience, but primarily for men currently in their 30s and
Yeah.
40s.
Yeah. So you just need to close the door, say it's like, oh, daddy has like important work tastings, and then just watch one a
Yeah.
week.
Why is Daddy
Right.
doing a virtual tasting on a Monday?
It's really
We trigger the
important.
poll here.
Please,
Yeah.
I'm triggered. Let's do the poll. God, I don't like that last one.
Yeah.
This is the only one that has liquid left in it because we were gabbing along, but
Well,
so
it
of
answers
the,
the question. Can you still like Nick Offerman but not love his whiskey?
oh, absolutely. Of
Yeah.
course, that man is a hero.
I don't think it's a bad whiskey. And again, when you're looking at the price for that, it's fine.
Okay.
It's
Right.
not
I
amazing.
said I was going to do this, and I'm going to do it.
Oh yeah.
I want to try some other whiskey from Skye that's much younger because I
Well,
suspect.
Harmony, do you want to give your top three while Andrew's cleansing his palate?
Okay. So top three rated in order of where my glasses are to me. The Clynelish 10 is at the front, the Glenkinchie second, and the
Glenkinchie?
Lagavulin. Sorry, yeah, that too. Glenkinchie. I'm not drinking a ninth whiskey right now. And then the Lagavulin 12 cask strength, I suppose. If I had to choose three.
Okay, Evan.
This doesn't happen often, but it's the first three. Maybe not in that order. Actually, I think the Roseisle was the most fun to try, just because I hadn't tried a Roseisle before, and I am very happily and pleasantly surprised by it. Followed by the Glenkinchie 27 and the Clynelish in third. So yeah, 1, 2, 3.
What's your
Andrew?
third, sir?
The Clynelish.
Okay.
So Evan, this is almost as rare as a unicorn, but my picks tonight are identical to yours. Roseisle number 1, Glenkinchie number 2, Clynelish number 3. And if I could pick a fourth, it would be the Torveg Croc Pneumonia, which I just had, which I think was better than everything else in the lineup tonight.
Yeah.
And it's a 6-year-old whiskey from the Isle of Skye. I'm not just saying that because I want to be provocative. Like, I like young spirity whiskeys, but I really find like a lot of the whiskeys in this lineup tonight just did not live up to expectations. I thought the Mortlach, frankly, for what they're asking for, is bad. Like, it's not that it's just not good. It's just it's actually bad. The Oban, I think, is not great. The Talisker was okay. And Harmony, I think the Lagavulin 12 of the back end, that probably was the best one in the back end of that lineup. But the Offerman, I mean, to me, just tastes like they were trying to make something for mass appeal. Like, that is the sort of thing they should be selling at duty free at the airport, because to your point earlier, Evan, no one's got any taste. They're just going to buy something based on the price and its marketing appeal and nothing else.
Yeah. I really struggled after Clynelish, to be honest. Like, and even selecting that Lagavulin was generous. But the Roseisle to me was just a little too perfumey. And it just didn't invoke happy memories for me. So I don't know. I'm really glad that there's independent bottlers out there bottling.
Yeah, agreed.
Well, and I think, we've mostly me, but we've spent the last hour and a half taking a lot of shots at Diageo. And I think all three of us would be in agreement that, like, we don't dislike the whiskeys. I think what we dislike is the marketing and the brand implementation, because we rave about a lot of the products they make that get bottled by other people, because, to use a word that's come up a lot tonight, they don't these other companies don't faff about with it. It's about putting something out there that people might like and that's good value. And there are things in tonight's tasting that were good. Whether they're good value is a different matter. I mean, the only one I think I would make an argument that it's reasonably good value is the Glenkinchie, and it's the most expensive thing in the lineup. But a lot of the others were just disappointing, and probably twice the cost, twice the price they should have been for the quality of the liquid.
So what other brands could we do a lineup with? Like, are there any other companies that own at least
who's never come around is Corby. So, I mean, we could do a Glenlivet Aberlour tasting with the gloves off.
We could. I think we should.
Oh, Well, and you know what? To Corby's defense, you know what would make an amazing tasting, which we'll never get to do, is their distillery release bottlings.
Mm.
Because
Oh,
they
wow.
do a lot of their best stuff apparently gets released at Strathisla and at Outerlure and so on and so forth.
Yeah,
So
but even those have apparently gotten expensive and inconsistent.
yeah,
So, Evan, you've put the results up on screen there. The winner for the top whiskey in tonight's tasting, Clynelish 10. So there you go, Harmony. I think that was your favorite, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Harmony wins. And then Glenkinchie and Roseisle. So Evan, we were close, but we were the inverse of what the crowd thought tonight.
yeah,
But I think if we were to pick an overall favorite, it looks like the Roseisle might have been the overall tonight because
yeah, no kidding.
the volume on
Yeah.
second favorite. Everything except for the Lagavulin 12-year-old gets a vote second time around, which means that's the only whiskey that didn't get a vote at all. And now to Evan's cheeky third question. Now for the hard question. What do you think of the lineup and the tasting? Your options are, it was great. I have to get me a bottle of two.
Or two of these, sorry.
Yeah, okay, of some of these. It was good. Love them or hate them. Diageo puts out some good solid drams. That got some votes. It was all right. Glad I didn't jump on these bottles when they first came out. And what appears to be the winner, like a national Diageo rep, I feel this is so last year, and I could not give an F. Well, that's unfortunate because you signed on to tonight's tasting. So
That's right.
And they're still here.
yeah.
Yep.
Well, I think it was a fun lineup. And I'm not joking. This is worth trying,
Mhm.
Mhm.
especially, yeah, what is it, $105 or something like that? It's worth trying.
Absolutely.
Evan, Harmony, thank you for tonight's tasting. Hope everyone enjoyed it. I think this is the last tasting I'll probably be on until September. So have a great Labor Day long weekend. There's still tickets for Sean and Eli, the wild card, on Thursday's rum tasting. So check it out. But until then, I hope you guys all have a good night. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to everyone soon.
Good
Bye, guys.
night.